And so people who are of a certain age remember like Brian Boitano and Christy Yamaguchi and Scott Hamilton, and they are, my friends. We're very close, relatively close. We talked one time. So there's the Starstruck thing.
Everybody, thank you for tuning in again for episode 14 of the Buffalo Community Podcast. Our guest this week, you might know him from the in-game host of the Tampa Bay Rays, the in-arena host for U.S. figure skating, the in-game host for Minnesota Wild, the WCHA Final Five in-game arena host, the play-by-play announcer back in 2012, Red Bull Crashed Ice, or probably more notably, our introduction to the world's best podcast, Buffalo Community Podcast. Let's hear that now.
This is the Buffalo Community Podcast, all about the greatest small town in the USA, the people in it, and how it all works together. Here are your hosts, Tyler Reese and Mark Benzer.
I realized I didn't even say your name.
I don't know how you got that guy to record your intro, but he is really good. And that doesn't sound at all like he did it on his iPhone in a walk-in closet.
It really didn't.
No.
But when I heard that, I thought, geez, that studio is just about as good as the Buffalo Community Podcast.
It's pretty good.
Rusty Kath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It said his name. Rusty Kath.
Is the guest today. So, Rusty, thank you for...
you can call me Ruff. Okay. We've known each other for 30-some years, and you've always called me Ruff. I think it's fine.
Okay.
The curtain's down.
Yep. So, Rusty.
Can I just say, before we can get going, mm-hmm. of all of the podcasts that highlight Buffalo, Minnesota, that are hosted by a real estate agent and an insurance agent, this is the best one.
Okay, let's go back and say that one more time.
Not even close.
Okay.
well, that's
yeah, you're welcome.
Honor.
Mm-hmm. All right, that concludes this week's episode.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Rusty, deep roots here in Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of take us back, your 30-second to 60-second story? Let's go back to 1999 to today in about a minute. So buckle up, folks. And
good thing I got that auctioneer school under my belt, so we can talk really quickly. Graduated in 1999 from Buffalo High School, then went on to the University of Minnesota Morris. Thought I was going to become a TV journalist, but then started watching TV news and realized I didn't really care for TV news. Worked as the public address announcer for all the sports teams at UMM. And then shortly after college, got a job with the St. Paul Saints, with the Minnesota Twins, and was working about 80 hours a week because I was landscaping in Buffalo as well with Lakeview Landscapes with Dan Scherber. And basically, they say, you guys probably find this too, or anybody who's watching who has a job, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And in sports, that couldn't be more true. And so really I just made enough connections over the years that started with the St. Paul Saints in the minor leagues, and then got a job with the Minnesota Swarm, the lacrosse team that was in Minnesota. They were owned by the Wild. One thing led to another. Somebody makes a phone call to Tampa Bay. U.S. figure skating comes in. And all of a sudden I have this weird niche career where I'm the guy up on the video board hosting contests, doing interviews with whoever athletes, and they pay me to watch sports and talk.
Perfect.
Yeah. It's a gig.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we, as far as that first break,
Mm-hmm.
You talk a lot about making connections and knowing people being so essential to where you are today. But that first gig didn't necessarily come through a connection. It was getting a break, working hard, being fortunate enough to get hired.
Totally.
Tell us a little bit about that entry, getting the door cracked. And
what was it, Vince Lombardi? The harder I work, the luckier I get.
Big believer in that.
So again, it starts really small. So I went to a small college, University of Minnesota Morris, and they had an ad in the newspaper saying, looking for a public address announcer. And it was, the 1-inch ad, and I answered it, and they never got back to me. And I just kind of showed up to the athletic director's office and said, I just want to make sure you got that. And he said, all right, now when you're doing this job And I'm like, I guess I got the job. Yeah. I guess nobody else applied for the job, and he just hadn't called me yet. But it was one of those little things where you follow up, and then you do just all the little things. You do the extra work. This is a time, think about, this is like the year 2000. And so I didn't have any MP3s. I didn't have any compact discs. I had cassette tapes, and I would mix the cassette tape with music I wanted to play during the inning breaks. And then would actually, so inning break, play music, fade it out. Now batting number 21, Andy Meisner. And then stop, go outside because I had no speakers inside the fish house, which was their press box, put my head into their speaker, play it real quietly so I could hear where the next song was going to start, run in because there's a guy who's going to about to start batting, and then, do this process over and over again. Well, they saw the work that went into that. One job led to another there, led to another there, and led to another. The other big thing, too, is that I screwed up in a small setting because whatever job you're going to take on, you're not going to be perfect at that job right out of the gates. Or for me, after 20 years of doing it still. But you're not going to. So take those opportunities and it's fine. Things are not going to go well, and that's totally okay. Learn from the mistakes the best you can and keep moving on.
Do you have one that just kind of lingers? Like the biggest faux pas, let's just say you're interviewed Kirby
Your first
Puckett
question is about my biggest faux pas.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's talk about when you screwed up the most.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll take you right back there.
Sure.
The year was 2001. The Monticello Polecats were hosting the Buffalo Bulldogs town team baseball. I was calling the game for AM 1360 KRWC in a van outside. It's like 45, 50 degrees outside.
Yep.
And I'm calling the game, and I don't know how I'm doing it. And so I just think there comes a slider. I don't know what a slider is at that point. Fastball in there, strike two. And I think this is how you're supposed to sound on radio. So I'm calling the game, and the Polecats are up. They're down by a run. There's a runner on second, bottom of the seventh inning. Now, mind you, I'd watched high school baseball. I played Little League baseball. I watched college baseball. In college baseball, they only played 7-inning games because they played double headers because you're trying to get as much baseball in. I had never seen a 9-inning game besides the majors. So my assumption is they're probably only playing 7 innings. So somebody comes up to the plate and fastball. That is a big drive. Back. And the Polecats walk him off. Home run. Polecats with the ball. Looks like there's another guy coming up to bat. See who that is. So that one's still there.
Okay.
Which I've never done. I've never called a walk-off 7th inning home run since.
Well, that's good. I always learn from your mistakes.
You do, yeah.
Well, and you touched on it when you were up in Morris.
Mm-hmm.
This is also a pretty good spot to make a mistake.
Yeah. Totally.
And maybe not end up on a YouTube sensation or you end up as some sort of viral video. So.
And boom goes the dynamite.
Yeah.
Right.
So awesome.
Which, by the way, I screw up still all the time. Mm-hmm. It's on camera and it's live, and that's fine. And it's the main reason I didn't go into journalism is because I'd watch journalists. Remember the Grape Lady YouTube sensation where the woman's squashing grapes and then she falls, oh, and they cut back to the anchors and they're like, I think she's really hurt.
I think she's actually hurt.
No,
there.
I think she is.
Yeah, she's
Ouch.
hurt. She took a hard fall off there.
Okay.
Boy, gosh, I hope she's okay.
Okay, we're going to make sure she is.
We'll try and
Gus
check
is
on
there.
her and get back
All
to you
right.
as soon as we can.
We'll be back right after this.
Yeah, I guess we're going to have to take a quick break. I mean, why are you talking like that? Nobody talks like that. And it's fine to have things go wrong and then it's okay. We screw up 1,000 times a day. Just own it.
Yep.
We'll take a quick break, see if she's okay.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I'm sure when we screw up on the podcast, that we'll have to.
Yeah, that first
we'll have to
time.
deal with it at that point. Let's hope that doesn't come anytime
I doubt it will.
soon.
Yeah, never.
But yeah,
Never.
So lots of experiences your job has brought you all around the country and all around the world. And you've had an opportunity to interview and meet lots of different people in various sports, various avenues of life. Any particular stand out as being memorable or?
I've been really fortunate in that I have all like the people who I looked up to. I've gotten to interview, Dave. If you're a baseball fan, Dave Winfield, Frank Viola. I've worked many All-Star games. I've interviewed Kenny Albert, Joe Buck, all sorts of these different people that I've always looked up to. And it's you're just kind of like, this is something went horribly wrong. Two that stand out a few years ago when the Minnesota Wild had their Stadium Series game. Again, so I'm not on TV for people who don't know. Like I do some commercial acting, I do some other work, but predominantly what I do is I'm up on the video board in the arena. And so we had the Stadium Series for the Minnesota Wild. They're playing the Chicago Blackhawks, and they had the alumni game at TCF Bank Stadium. So you're outdoors, and somehow or another, I'm just on the Blackhawks alumni bench the whole time doing interviews and just going, something went horribly wrong in here. There should be somebody much more qualified down here. And I hear in my earpiece, like, all right, last break, grab Chris Chelios and Mike Madonna for one last interview. I'm like, okay. Oh, Mr. Chelios, do you like hockey?
Come on, guys, come on.
Mike, remember when you played for the North Stars and you were my favorite player? Well, that wraps it up here. So that was awesome. I didn't sound quite that bad. Actually, they were great too, because I'm like, hey, here's what we're going to try and do. The camera's over there. I'm going to set you up with this and then this. And I'm like, yeah. And they're just total pros. Made it much like you two. But for me, my career peaked when I was 27 years old. 26, actually. 2007, Tampa Bay Devil Rays.
Oh, that's not good if it's already peaked.
Up till this point. We'll see where this may be. But it was, so I got a job with the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. And they were still the Devil Rays at that point. They were the laughingstock of Major League Baseball. For the last 10 seasons, since their existence, they finished dead last in the league. And so I got hired as their guy up on the video board to try and make the place a little less terrible. I don't know if I did it. I brought them to the World Series the next year, so I guess I did my job.
Yeah.
But they would do anything, like in minor league baseball or anything else, to try and put people in the seats. And so they had wrestling night. And so they had all these professional wrestlers gonna compete, like legit, like it was the Nasty Boys, and they were taking on Cuban Assassin and Terry Steiner. And the second I'm calling the matches alongside Mean Gene Okerlund.
Oh, wow.
And so there he is. And like, I was a huge AWA fan when I was a little kid, before there was even the WWF, the WE, like that was old school. And so I'm sitting there next to Mean Gene and just filling in color commentary, like, quite a throw, Rusty. I'm like, quicker than a hiccup, Mean Gene. That is incredible. And I'm like, this is so awesome. And then the career peaks right when we're halfway through the match between Brutus the Barber Beefcake and Greg the Hammer Valentine. And Mean Gene takes his microphone down and says, why don't you take the rest of this one, kid? Okay, Mean Gene, yeah. And I'm like, this is going to be the greatest moment of my career. And it was.
Yeah.
That's been it.
This, you might have already alluded to it, but have you ever been starstruck? I know you
your bourbon is great. Oh, who your sponsor is? That is delicious.
Well, it's our own mix.
Oh, I can tell.
It's our own mix. That's some bathtub bourbon.
Yes,
That's the BC
it's very
bourbon.
It's got a strong vinegar taste to it. I like that. You're asking about being starstruck, though.
Yeah, anybody that just starstruck.
Yeah, lots of times you really just try and keep your cool the best you can. And it's weird for like the different people that you're around. So I've worked in U.S. figure skating for a number of years now, which is a weird relationship that started. I was working with the Minnesota Wild. They had their U.S. championships there. And so people who are of a certain age remember like Brian Boitano and Christy Yamaguchi and Scott Hamilton. And they are, my friends. We're very close, relatively close. We talked one time. So there's the starstruck thing. But since I knew it growing up, but I think, we were wrestlers, right? Yeah. And so all of a sudden when you get to be around, for me, it was when I met Dan Gable. And people who are wrestling people know Dan Gable. Those who aren't, he's one of the greatest college wrestlers and Olympic wrestlers, world freestyle Greco-Roman of all time, greatest college wrestling coach of all time. And when I met him, even though this was at a Tampa Bay Rays game when I was working with him, he was throwing out a first pitch promoting something. 99% of the stadium had no idea who this guy was. No idea whatsoever. But for me, he was, somewhere like if they add a fourth to the Holy Trinity, it would be Gable. That's how big he was. So for me, that was probably the biggest one of like, oh boy, wow, you're something.
Everybody in the stands like, this announcer is totally jacked with this guy. Who is this?
How's he pumping his arms when he's introducing him?
Man.
You can do it, Dan.
I'm so proud of you, Dan.
Got it, Dan.
Always have been proud of you, Dan.
Ozzie Smith's right behind you. Yeah, he's fine. He's fine. Hall of Fame baseball player, no big deal.
Well, anytime that, there's the story of Dan Gable where somebody knocks on his door while he's at home, just so that, can we wrestle? Yes. Can I wrestle you? And Dan Gable invites him into his house, beats him down, and the guy just leaves so happy.
That's so great.
Yeah.
I didn't ask him to beat me down at that point. It would have been awesome if he would have.
Great. I'm just going to go back a little bit. You talk about the work that went into your...
Get a little more of this. This is good.
Yeah. Fired up. Hey, the work that went into, what you had to do at the college level when you're announcing and running out of the booth and this and that, like ridiculous work, right? But kind of tying that in with wrestling and just your personality, talk about how that has got you, just work ethic and doing extra things and being prepared. I mean, I know you as somebody who is just freakish.
Yeah. Because of my muscles. Being prepared. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about my physique.
Hard work, preparedness.
I think so. I don't know. Tim Walz had said recently, like in one of his speeches, like, we're Minnesotans. We pride ourselves on exceptionalism. And I think whatever sport you are a part of or whatever community you're a part of, that kind of goes with it. I'm a hockey player. I am exceptional. Right? And wrestlers, we really have that. And I don't know if it's just because we're not that well known. It's not the most popular of sports, but we consider ourselves exceptional in the way that we work. And so for me, there was always just this idea of you just go do the extra work, whatever extra work it is, you just do it. The other thing too, as far as like, I did things that I knew were going to be a setback at some point so they could be better in the future. I got a job with the Minnesota Twins, not like a big like announcing job or anything. I was in their press box and just making notes of all the highlights that happened. I was making very little money doing it, but I got to sit in the press box and get to know a lot of people who worked with the Twins and thus all these other teams. And I was landscaping by day. And then when there wasn't a Twins game, if there was a home St. Paul Saints game, I'd landscape for 8-10 hours, quick run down to St. Paul, announce the St. Paul Saints game, or work at a Minnesota Twins game, get back to Buffalo at 11 midnight, get up at 6 the next morning and do it all over again, knowing that eventually was going to have a payoff. One of the things I would do too, this isn't particularly like hard working, but just kind of knowing, making those extra connections. Sometimes with the Twins, they'd say like, well, let's play, it's the end of a series. It's a night game midweek. Let's all hang out and play poker after. So we'd go into, a cool room. There's all sorts of, autographed memorabilia for the Twins, and we'd play poker. I'm pretty bad at poker. I lose a lot of money at poker, and I didn't have much money to lose at that point. But the relationships I garnered from the people at the table are still paying dividends to this day, awesome. Even though I was up until 2 a.m. and had to be up at 6 to landscape the next morning.
Losing money to professional athletes.
It wasn't professional. That wasn't the athletes. It wasn't like I was playing poker with the athletes. It was just the people who worked in the industry.
Sure. Yeah. Question is, do you have a dream event?
Ooh, a dream event or a dream gig?
Yeah.
Well, so here's the great benefit of working in sports is that it's cyclical. It keeps coming, okay? Hockey season ends, and then it's into the baseball season. And the baseball season, and into the hockey season, or whatever else going on. And that's the beauty of sports, that you always know there's going to be work. The one way that wouldn't happen And this is a big what if. But let's just say there was an international pandemic in which we were practicing severe social distancing so as to protect the most vulnerable in the community, as well as the overrunning of the healthcare system, and thus would not be allowed to have any large gatherings for an extended period of time. Then it would be a pretty bad time to work in sports or live events. But that's very unlikely to happen, so I wouldn't worry about it. On that note, it has been interesting in that, so for my work, I was among the first people to be out of work. You know, when we were supposed to have a Minnesota Wild game, I think it was March 11th or March 12th against the Vegas Golden Knights, and we just kind of waited around all day. The NBA had paused the season, and then the NHL was, you know, what are we going to, in hindsight, of course you're going to call it, but they're trying to figure out what's the scenario. Is it without fans? How are we going to do this? How are we going to navigate it? And so you just kind of waited, and then nothing happened. And they're like, yeah, we're not going to play this game, and we're not going to play the rest of the season. And then it was like, well, but the baseball season will be right here. I'm like, not gonna play that at all. And I will say to the Twins and to the Minnesota Wild, the Wild were kind enough. So I'm a part-time employee. I'm not a full-time employee of the Minnesota Wild. I show up as a concession stand worker would, or somebody who's a fan host telling people where to sit, and then I leave. I don't have a full-time office there or anything like that. The Wild were kind enough to pay all those part-time employees for the final games, even though we didn't work them. Something they did not need to do.
Amazing.
And the Twins, also with their part-time employees, didn't pay us specifically for the games, but did kind of an algorithm to figure out, all right, here's something. Here's chunk of change. They did not need to do that. It was incredibly kind. One other thing I do, so I'm wearing an airviews.com t-shirt because it's a drone company and I host a travel show for them. I don't know if you've checked out the travel industry lately, but the demand for this travel show is not where it was recently. So really, you'd ask a dream gig at this point, anything would be great.
So he was telling the truth that, he already had his peak.
Yeah, it
peaked.
Yeah. I am but it is like, I think too, with what people are going through right now, and they're kind of trying to rediscover, all right, is there something else I can do? Is there something? And so for me, it is, all right, I'm trying to take advantage of that. What can I do? Right now, I'm in the midst of pitching a landscaping show to HGTV. The beauty is when you can say, like, I'm in the midst of pitching this show, that means I have an idea for one, and then I need to do 50 other steps that will take a very long time, and then get it through my agent to get out there. But there is kind of a freedom of, all right, what's next? What do I want to try and do that is completely different? Or do I want to do something like I haven't done at all? I have this one other idea. Tell me what you guys think. Is I'd like to pitch. Oh, sorry, Mike.
I knew somebody would call him.
It's not. I just set an alarm. Nobody has called me in weeks.
Yeah.
I was so excited. It was an alarm saying,
wake up,
eat. I'm just trying to get everything in order right now. But
something in the works.
Yeah. So I think people kind of re-examine what you want to do or what the next thing is going to be. And I'm thinking about, tell me what you think about this. I want to start a podcast that highlights the city of Buffalo, Minnesota, and why it's the greatest small town in the USA and the people who make it work.
That's a trash idea.
Yeah, right.
Terrible. That's terrible.
That's a terrible idea. That'll never work.
Yeah. Nobody will listen.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Mom.
Yeah. So we've all kind of gotten to a certain point where we're at now with mentors. Myself, Tyler, I'd imagine you have some mentors, some people who have been invaluable to where you are now.
Absolutely. If anybody comes to a Minnesota Wild game, sees me co-hosting, there's a number of us who host at those games on the video board. But Jim Cunningham, who's been around for many, many years, he was the in-game host on the video board at the Twins for the last 25 years. He just stepped down this last year. And I think he was the original to do this kind of thing. And I remember many, many years ago, I was just out of college and I went to Twins Fest and he was announcing it. I said, hey, I didn't even ask this. How do I get your job? It's like, well, you just got to know the right guy. And he introduced me to people. And he took me under his wing. Adam Abrams, who's the public address announcer for the Twins and the Wild as well. They were just so kind to me and gave me advice. Dave Lee from WCCO Radio, who took the time to talk to me and teach me things. Even people you wouldn't think would necessarily be mentor. Like those people have had very successful careers. The guy who's the sports information director at the college I was at, he did small town radio for years and years. He taught me a ton of stuff that I wouldn't have been able to realize on my own. And so, and for the most part, I've really tried to pass that along. I host some different events with some people who are younger and much more talented than me. And they're asking me about rate and agency and trying to get different gigs. I'm like, I'm going to tell you everything I know because I had people who helped me in my industry and got me to where I am, and I'll try and do the same. And I think the same's true for you guys and hopefully anybody else in any other industry.
Yeah.
For sure.
World of abundance right there. That's great. Never take one of those opportunities for granted.
Totally, yeah.
Absolutely.
I love this bourbon.
So good.
So good.
It's got a little bit of a rubbing alcohol taste to it as well, too.
Granny's.
That's basically the recipe that you've just given to.
Is this isopropyl
hundreds of
alcohol and
thousands of
vinegar?
people that,
Yeah, but it's the light stuff. It's not the dark. It's not the dark. Good. It's a double filter.
What do you got, Tyler? We've covered a lot of ground.
Well, we usually do a speed round.
Oh, yeah.
I have some questions. First thing that pops into mind.
Okay.
I came a little bit prepared with this one.
Eastern chipmunk.
Okay, awesome. So the question was.
Okay. God, I hope Eastern chipmunk's the answer.
If you could only choose one song to play every time you walked into a room,
Oh, man.
what would it be?
Oh, God, it might be something by Alvin and the Chipmunks. It would be, oh, man, there's so many great options. Fox on the Run by Sweet.
Fox on the Run by Sweet.
Yeah.
That's one I'm going to have to look up.
I know. You could tell.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
I just thought you were really terrible at singing that song.
Yeah.
That's not how it starts.
Next time I see you, once we are able to go out and sing karaoke, when I see you in the corner, I'm going to put your name down for that one.
Yeah.
Just so you walk up and sing, Fox on the Run. That's not how this goes at all. That's what I go. Fox on the Run. Sweet.
Okay, excellent.
I have no speed round questions
Okay.
prepared. However, just drawing off of, the little bit that I know you, you're
35 years.
very smart when it comes to birds. My favorite thing is when
very
my kids basically, if Alexa's not immediately available, my kids will say, "Hey, Dad, you should ask Rusty," before they even want to know if I know the answer. So that's my favorite.
I feel terrible about that.
Favorite thing.
Exciting thing about birds, by the way.
Yeah.
16 different species of ducks on the migration through my place this year. I've had plenty of time to sit back and watch.
Oh, 16.
Yeah.
What's your favorite bird?
Cedar waxwing.
I feel like that's a joke. But
No, I love a cedar waxwing.
Absolutely right.
Can you edit a cedar waxwing?
Yeah, it'll be
pop-up
right
there?
here.
Yeah.
And I'm also probably going to put in, what was that song?
Fox on the Run
Fox
by
on the
Sweet.
Run by
The same band that sang Little Willie.
Oh,
Little Willie won't go.
okay. You won't choose that one?
No.
Okay.
Fox on the Run, because rusty means red-haired or like a fox. And I did shave before I came in here. I looked like Yukon Cornelius before I showed up.
Oh,
And it's like 1 p.m. and
Wish you went
he's
to
already
shave.
has a 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah.
That's manly right there.
so I got to come up with another question. So hopefully you got another one.
Way to put me on the spot there, Mark.
Well, you said
No.
you had some prepared.
I had some prepared.
Okay.
What's the funniest thing that's ever happened to you? Just
Oh, man.
Boy, that's a hard
I'm going to
one.
record that sound right there. That's going to be a soundbite later.
I'm going to give you the funniest thing that's happened to me at a sporting event.
Sure.
We used to do this great thing with the Rays where, and the Twins took it up years later too, but we had a kid would bring out the first game ball and the rosin bag to the mound before the guys would be out and take the field. And so I'd have them, I'd announce them, they'd sprint out, and they'd toss the rosin bag on the back of the mound, they'd put the ball in the rubber, I'd have them take their hat off, and they'd wave to everybody, and they'd come running back. This is a great moment. And I got this girl who's like 6 years old, and I explain everything she needs to do. And she's like, yep, I got it. And I'm like, all right, here she is, Andrea. And she runs out and she throws the rosin bag in the back and she puts the ball on the rubber and she waves her hat and she takes off for left field. And she just, this is the fastest kid that's ever lived. And here I am sprinting behind this girl. And I finally catch up with her in left field. They were playing the Orioles. And Adam Jones was trying to stretch when I pick up this. I'm sorry, Mr. Jones. Carry this girl back.
It would have been kind of fun just to let her go.
Yeah,
Like,
who knows?
Where's she gonna end up?
Might still be there.
She just kept running.
There's a little girl-shaped hole in left field wall.
Right. That's great.
What's that all about?
Cool. Well, Rusty, thanks very much.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on, guys. I'd like to thank whoever canceled. So you guys called me up and had me on. I appreciate that.
Yeah. We would have got to you eventually.
I love that you're implying, oh, yeah, definitely somebody canceled that. You could have said no.
No.
You mean you did this in under 24-hour notice?
No, you kidding me? You knew I was pretty busy right now.
Yeah.
And here's how prepared we were. We weren't actually prepared with 3 microphones.
Oh.
We actually have one on loan from the local police detective and his classic rock and roll band, the Crow's Feet.
Really?
Yep. Plays at concerts in the park usually, but
Oh, yeah.
postponed. But anyway.
Do they
some of
only
this
play
equipment-
Counting Crows and the Black Crows?
Oh, absolutely.
That'd be great.
Those are classics.
I got a little something for you. Is that okay?
Sure.
For having me on.
Bourbon,
Just a little present for each of you. Just my token of gratitude as a guy who is currently out of work, but has
Open these up?
Yeah, well, that'd be usually what you do with a present. They, but a guy who is out of work, and a couple people I know who you guys maybe need some decorations in your office. Back when I was with the St. Paul Saints, they made the very first ever, not just bobblehead, but a bobble jaw.
First of its kind.
Yeah,
That is classic.
Yes, the jaw bobbles. That
Check
way.
that out.
Yep. Yeah, those are very rare. It's not like there's a few crates of them at my house or anything still. So if ever you need a guest once again and nobody's available, you can just put that in front of the microphone.
Gosh, that's great. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're
That's
very
amazing.
welcome. What'd you get for me?
Yeah.
The bourbon.
Oh, thank you. Fair trade.
I already.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. That's awesome.
Well,
For the Buffalo Community Podcast, I'm Tyler Reese.
and I'm Mark Benzer.
And with us is Rusty Kath.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
That was good.